Hi, I'm Tony Ant News. It's like nailing jelly to a wall. Jello, if you're in America. Taking the Department of Work and Pensions through their complaints procedure is absolutely infuriating. We're now at 2 years trying to get them to rectify the error that they made of taking £7,330, I think it was. From basically a domestic abuse victim. As soon as we found out about this, we put in a mandatory reconsideration with the evidence that this woman was entitled to benefits. And, heard nothing for a year. They did a mandatory reconsideration, which we'd asked for, and came to the wrong conclusion. So then we went for a tribunal, and they didn't reply in time. So we wrote to the judge and asked him to reconsider for a direction. So he wrote to the DWP and they read the file and put the white flag up. Oh no, sorry, we got it wrong. Speak to your job coach. So we messaged the job coach and nothing. Then we messaged the job coach again and we just got how to claim costs for the tribunal, which we didn't actually go to because they put their white flag up. But this person has had huge costs, and they've also took £1,418 out of her benefits for a debt that she didn't owe. She then got a rent rise and couldn't pay that rent rise and got evicted, got a 56-day notice. Also, she missed a funeral of her dad, and then she wasn't allowed to apply for other things because she hadn't got enough money. Now, we feel that there's a huge injustice here. Anyway, we put in a formal complaint to the complaint process, breaking down the costs that's been involved. And on the last day of the 21 days or they're supposed to deal with it, they're supposed to ring you up. Instead of dealing with the whole complaint, they just slid the £1,400 back into a bank account and ignored the rest. So we're at this point where they're just not following the complaints procedure as like any other procedure they haven't followed. So we're now at the case of trying to take legal action. There's a couple of ways. You have to send notice of intended legal action to DWP legal team. But this has got to the point where it's criminal. So they've gained an advantage by pecuniary advantage, which is part of the Theft Act. But they've also committed fraud. They've invented a debt. They've transmitted the debt to DWP DEBT RECOVERY. They've taken 18 counts of money from the person's account. And they returned it back without any interest, without any compensation for their actions. And they haven't put her back in the position where she should have been. They haven't followed their complaints procedure. Now, that's misconduct in public office. So which charge do we actually put these people under? I mean, I am presuming I should be able to send this off and it should be investigated just as hard as if I hadn't paid any tax. I don't think that'll be the case. I think the answer is I have to go to the county court, raise, after sending my letter of intended action, and then take them through the county court. But what number do we claim for compensation? I have no idea, other than the guidance given in the independent case examiner's notes, where missing your dad's funeral is worth about £5,000. The hurt and harm of being evicted, I think that's another £5,000. It's an interesting case. In reality, moving house has cost her an extra £300 a month, right? It was £500 or £600 in moving costs. She had to buy a washing machine, fridge, she had to get a van. It's not an insignificant amount of harm that these people have caused. Anyway, we will continue on with this case. I've nicknamed it the Ballymena fraud, because the whole case started from a message from DWP Ballymena. But anyone who has ever had to deal with DWP, and they're a nightmare. I mean, I get the same with DVLA. We send off for a new driving licence for every 3 years, and then they send back a message saying, well, we're still writing to people. And then they send back saying that they've not replied and it'll be another few months. And all this time, you've got no voter ID. You've got no valid driving licence to go and vote. So why are government departments so rubbish? Could have used another word, couldn't I? But anyway, that's probably enough for today's video. I'm Tony, I'm Ant News, dealing with the scurry that us ants have to deal with. And we will keep this going. Oh, sorry, one more thing. I got a letter from the tax man. The flat that I bought for my father-in-law, and I did it with a mortgage, but we rented it, he lived in it rent-free, right? We bought a flat, kept him safe because he had dementia. And then he went into a care home because he became a danger to the people in the flats, not only himself. He burnt a microwave out in the kitchen and a few little misdemeanors. Anyway, we cleaned up the kitchen. Now, whilst he was still in the care home, we rented that out to a friend. Then he passed away and we sold the flat. Well, except that we couldn't sell it because the government hadn't registered the lease extension that we'd had to make. So the two people who were trying to buy the flat became homeless themselves. Now, they were two paramedics working up working for the NHS, and they were in a bit of a desperate situation. And the estate agent said, oh, why can't we rent it to them whilst the purchase goes through? And I thought, this is a bit risky. This is in a pandemic, although I mentioned that dimension. And what happened was we had to do a rental agreement and sort all of this out. Anyway, 6 months went by. We finally sorted out the lease that, land registry hadn't done the paperwork on. And then we sold it, and I got rid of the mortgage and sorted out all the paperwork. 3 years goes by. HMRC writes me, you didn't tell us about this property you were renting out. Well, I wasn't actually earning enough money to pay tax. So they got all on their high horse about how much money I must owe them as a landlord. And I think, well, I was an accidental landlord. This wasn't a business. This was me using my capital to make sure father-in-law was safe. Anyway, they're now after me for tax, claiming that, I wasn't declaring my income from renting out the property that I couldn't sell because they wouldn't let me. Anyway, I'm Tony, Ant News. There's going to be a few more on these stories. Anyway, title of this video, Nailing Jelly to a Wall. I'm Tony, signing out.